everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. We're going to kick the meeting off. Agenda item. So the first thing on our agenda is to consider an appropriate preliminary request by the Branford Housing Authority and Beacon Communities, the town of Branford, to grant access to land to build a road on Melrose Avenue. Law school. Thank you.
I'm Jay Potter, I'm a resident of Branford.
Can't hear you.
Teach at Yale Law School in the clinical program. Our clinic is representing the Branford Housing Authority with respect to its proposal to redevelop Parkside Village 1. And tonight we're here having to talk about Parkside, but we're here to talk instead, mostly we hope, about the Melrose access. As you saw the first time in the agenda, represents a request, at least as framed, by the Housing Authority of Beacon for the town to grant access to land to build a road to Melrose Avenue. And that's not a completely accurate characterization of what the Branford Housing Authority and Beacon are asking. What we are asking this committee to do is to refer to the full R.T.M. the proposal that the Melrose Road access be moved forward through the town's normal processes. I understand that that may mean a Board of Finance meeting, it may mean an appropriation from the budget, a vote by the representative town meeting, and so forth. It's not our intent to build that road ourselves. The letter that we submitted to Mr. Dunbar on June the 11th tried instead to make it clear that the Branford Housing Authority and Beacon Communities were offering to make a cash contribution toward the town's construction of the Melrose Road access. I just think it ought to be clear about what it is that we're asking this committee to consider and to consider referring back to the full R.T.M. The Melrose Road access is around 100 yards long. It would run from Melrose Road near the entrance of Foot Park down the hill in front of the baseball field to what's currently a parking area behind Parkside 1. This proposal was put to the town Planning and Zoning Commission last September by Mr. Cosgrove and presented by Mr. Paluzzi to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I think in the packet of information that we have been passed out to you, you have the documentation for that. The road itself is shown on a map that was prepared for the town of Branford by CPA, which is a design consulting firm which does work for Branford and also for the BHA and for Beacon on the Parkside project. And it would run from Melrose Road down to this parking area. And then the way the town proposed it, there would also be a further loop back past the concession stand connecting to the big parking area at the front side of Foot Park. So it's this little loop right here. I'll pass that around if you want to look at it. This is the town's map.
Could you point that out to members of the committee too, so that we're on that map?
I'm sorry. That's sorry.
That's better than that. See one.
It's the same. Well, there are two maps, which are the same map. The bigger one, and I'll bring it over here. Shows it here. Yeah, and it shows it's this road from Melrose down to the parking area and then around back up to the park. So it's this little loop. And this map, the C1.12A, is a map of what is required by the Planning and Zoning Commission as a condition of the Parkside redevelopment proposal. Okay, but it's identical to the map that I just was passing over here which the town had prepared when they made their submission in September.
What's the difference? What's the difference between the 12 map and the 12A map?
Don't know.
They're just different, yeah.
There have been a lot of maps.
I'm sure.
I'd say the proposal has gone through many design tweaks over the years. So as you can see, it's not a long road. And its purpose, when Mr. Paluzzi made the presentation last fall, was to improve parking, access, and safety at the slimy fields. That was what the town said it wanted to accomplish by building that road. Branford Housing Authority and Beacon would benefit if the town built that road. There's no question about it. They would benefit in two ways. It would meet the condition that the Planning and Zoning Commission put on the Parkside development, and it would save the Branford Housing Authority and Beacon from having to knock down around 20,000 square feet of trees, excavate rock, and do a lot of work at the front end of the Parkside Village property on South Miles Avenue. It would also provide temporary parking during the construction phase of Parkside Village for the Parkside residents and for construction equipment and things like that. So there's no question that BHA and Beacon would benefit if this road were built. We're here tonight because one of the conditions of our approval from Planning and Zoning was that that road needed to be built and in service before we would pull a building permit to go to work on Parkside Village. Some of the concern about the Melrose Road access, that 100-yard stretch and the loop back to Foot Park, is in truth related to people's efforts to stop Parkside Village, and they are, some people are hoping that if this road doesn't get built, Parkside Village won't get redeveloped. And that is not necessarily the case. Parkside Village and the Branford Housing Authority and Beacon could take other measures on their own property, within their own land, to solve the construction problem, the parking problem, the emergency access problem to them. What we have offered in the $200,000 contribution toward the construction of this road is an effort to help incent the town to go ahead and do the road, because it's better for us if you build that road. It's better for our project, it's better for our residents, and it's better long-term for Parkside Village because there won't be trees taken down, rocks excavated, and things like that. Most important though, we think it's better for the town to do exactly what Mr. Paluzzi and Mr. Cosgrove had suggested to the Planning and Zoning Commission back last September. Some of you may have played on the slimy fields yourselves. Some of you may have had children or grandchildren. I was the girls' commissioner for the Branford Soccer Club for a few years. And we practiced there in the fall, Monday through Thursday nights, and we had our games on Saturdays. And parking was crazy. That's what Mr. Paluzzi said back in September. He said it's been a problem for 30 years. That's slimy. And the town wanted, at that time, to look into the process of improving that situation. I was one of the lawyers who helped Trinity Church in the process of Foot Park being acquired by the town from the Foot Trust. And I remember in the meetings with the probate judge and in the discussions with the town that one of the reasons why it made sense to everyone for the town to take over Foot Park and begin to operate it was because the town could provide upgrades and improvements on a long-term basis to Foot Park more cheaply and more efficiently than the trust could itself. And one of the goals, the town said, was to look at its properties in that area and develop a long-term plan for how best to make them run well for the children of Branford and for the community of Branford. And this proposal to build this little loop of 100 yards or so from Melrose Avenue and probably 25 to 30 yards from the parking area foot down to the parking at behind Parkside now would do just that. It would improve the traffic flow, especially for parents who do pickup and drop off for baseball or for soccer. It would expand the parking quite dramatically, and it would smooth the problem at night now of coming up Sliney Road, which is very narrow. It's a difficult turn off of South Monowese. And in the fall, when the fields are being used late into the evening for junior soccer, it gets dark and it's not the safest of places to be picking up, dropping off, making turns and those kind of things. Most of all, what building this access would do is provide emergency access to the fields at Sliney. So that if there were sports-related injuries to children or the parents, it would be easy for the emergency access vehicles to get in there and to respond to those emergencies. That's difficult to do now, at best. The history of the proposal is pretty easy. Last summer, Beacon and the Branford Housing Authority were talking to the town, to the planning department, and to the neighborhood about how to change what had been a previous proposal for redeveloping Parkside Village. And in those discussions, the question of emergency access to the back of Parkside Village and to the Sliney Fields came up in discussions. And the Housing Authority, Beacon, and the town all agreed that it would be a better long-term solution to build that road in from Melrose to the back of Parkside Village. That's why we're here tonight. We would like you to recognize the value of that project and pass it on to the full representative town meeting so they can consider whether the town wants to go forward and do that or not. We think it makes sense to do it now because it will help us and because we'll help pay for it. Those of you who've used the fields and seen them over the years and know the situation, I think probably in your deep hearts know that in the end, the town is probably going to do something about this problem that's on. And the town will probably build something like this Melrose access. Now is the time. Its absence won't stop Parkside. But building it now will help us and will help the town and will help everyone. Don't want to go on and on. Included in the packet was a letter from the Branford Soccer Club supporting building the road. What we hope this committee will do is pass this on to the full R.T.M. and give them a chance to evaluate whether this is a project that the town wants to do. I'm happy to answer questions if you want, either about this proposal or about Parkside. We have with us several of the commissioners from the Branford Housing Authority who are happy also to participate and offer their wisdom or responses to questions. But I also know that you've got an agenda with other items, right?
Thank you, Professor. Question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know, I apologize. I'm used to answering judges' questions, I'm sorry.
I I understand what the gentleman's proposing this evening, but my understanding is that we rule and we govern over things that are given to us. And what it sounds like we're doing is we're gonna go to the R.T.M. and then recommend that it goes to the selectman's office, because projects normally start there and make its way this way. It seems like we're going backwards.
I don't think the project can begin without the easement.
Well, this whole project involves money. In order to build a road and do so forth is money. We authorize money that is requested by whatever entity asks for it, goes to the Board of Finance, then comes to us. It sounds like we're being asked to approve something that's gonna cost the town money. I think it should go the other way.
I have the equal concern, echoing what my panel member said here, that there is a position that $200,000 is given towards construction of the access road. The R.T.M., including its subcommittees, seem to not be able to accept revenue for the town during the budget season, which is sort of what we're being asked to do here. And another procedural jurisdictional issue I have is that it appears, as Professor Plattner just indicated, that the language of the item that's being discussed tonight on our agenda here at the Administrative Services Committee is at odds with the request by the Housing Authority in Beacon, as I think you indicated. And that also brings some jurisdictional issues, whether or not this committee can, and the R.T.M. in general, can have a vote on an agenda item that's different from that what was proposed initially. And I have an inquiry, if I may, as to who actually wrote this agenda item. Do you know who drafted that?
I don't know the answer to that, Dan. My understanding is that the Housing Authority in Beacon gave the letter to Mr. Dunbar dated June 11th.
Well, let me stand, just so everybody knows, I am not the clerk.
I know.
So it did get passed on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they went through the moderator and passed it on.
In any event, it went to the R.T.M., and the R.T.M. at their last meeting voted to refer it to this committee. That, I think it came up as part of the communications, so I was present at the R.T.M. meeting that night. And how it was phrased or framed, I think doesn't quite capture what the letter, what the communication was.
But that's important, though.
Yeah, right.
And so I think before we reach the substance of the actual proposal itself, the procedural issues, A, whether or not this committee has jurisdiction, and whether the fact that there's an influx of money during the budget season, and whether it should be in the finance committee. And B, do we have jurisdiction when the language in the proposal on our agenda is different than the request that was submitted?
And obviously, I can't speak to how the R.T.M. manages its agenda or its business in a fine-grained detail. What we're hoping you will do is take the gist of what our proposal is, which we're asking the R.T.M. to move the process along. And whether the R.T.M. thinks it needs to be referred back to its own finance committee or to the Board of Finance or wherever it needs to go, that's obviously within the purview of the legislative body of the whole town. What happened before now is what I described at the very beginning. Last September, Mr. Cosgrove wrote a letter to the Planning and Zoning Commission pursuant to 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes, referring a proposal, and his letter uses the word proposed, safety and traffic improvements at the Slimy Fields. And that's what the letter says, and that's what that map that we showed around said. And at its early September meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission gave that a unanimously positive referral pursuant to the statute back to the town.
And I guess my question is, it went back to the town, which I'm gonna have to guess would be town hall. So this, if it's gonna make its way to us, should be coming from town hall, not from us to them to bounce back to us.
Quick question, you say the original proposal is different from what's before us tonight, so you're saying the resolution that was given to us is different from the actual agenda item? Okay.
I mean, I'm reading it, I just gotta look at the agenda as you guys have it. I thought what was on the agenda was the granting of an easement, not moving forward with the project, which would come under this committee's jurisdiction, but at this point, we have no idea how much this project is gonna cost. Is it 200,000, is it 800,000? I have no idea if we decide to move forward with it. It's not, it's, as far as I know, it's kind of a pipe dream on Alice's part. I haven't seen it on the town's 5-year capital plan. Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. It's not on the 5-year capital plan. Usually these things we, plan out years in advance. But, my concern here is that, I think there's separate issues. There's separate issues about granting an easement in perpetuity and what solution, if any, we might want to do to rearranging parking at the park. Those are separate issues.
I agree. I think, just to clarify, the actual agenda item for us would be to consider if appropriate, approve a request by the Branford Housing Authority and Beacon Communities for the town of Branford to grant access to land to build access road to Melrose Avenue. So I don't think we're actually accepting that resolution that was handed to us, that was prepared. But we'd be actually saying, okay, yes, we will give access to Beacon, and housing authority to build that road, or the private driveway road, whatever you want to consider it. That's your take on that.
Anthony, as a moderator, I sent it to the Administrative Services Committee. This is strictly land transaction. This is an easement which comes under the jurisdiction of the Administrative Services Committee. So the realm of this is well within your committee's jurisdiction here tonight. This is strictly a easement, granting of an easement. It's a road, it's the road over there. So that comes under the Administrative Services Committee's jurisdiction.
So, the actual resolution that was given to us, I think would be a totally separate vote. Correct?
My colleague has helpfully pointed out that one way to think about this from a legal perspective is that the easement that the gentleman just referred to is necessary but not sufficient for the project to go forward. Obviously, if the town is going to build this road or not, is a decision for the town to make. For Selectman's office, for the Park and Rec Department, for the R.T.M, and so forth. But in order to advance this and get it considered and frankly kick-started, we made the proposal to request that you consider an easement and that you consider the possibility of a substantial cash payment toward constructing the road. But it's opposite, as Peter said, it's up to the town to decide whether they want to go forward or not. If this committee, in its wisdom, decides that granting an easement to operate and to use the road during that period of time is a sensible thing, then the town may or may not decide to go for it. We were frankly stymied because the Planning and Zoning Commission made the construction of this road a requirement for the development of the project. And we don't have the power to do that. It's on town land, and it's the town that would build the road. So what the Housing Authority and Beacon are trying to do is to give it a little nudge and to have the representative town meeting and the town fathers look at this and decide whether they want to go forward with this proposal that they initiated, and only initiated. I mean, that was a very first step last fall when they made the proposal to the Planning and Zoning Commission and got the positive referral. But the gentleman is exactly right, the moderator, that we would need your easement from the town to operate and to go forward if the project actually happens, if the road actually happens.
Isn't there annual conflict? I mean, if we were to, or decision was to bring something to the RTM. I would go to the moderator would send it to committee. It's pretty much what we're doing here. I don't see why this would be any different, but we can't clear just this portion of it. Not the full resolution that is in front of us, I'm sure some of the details of it are in the resolution.
And there's concern, Chairperson, that the inherent in the granting of the easement is the influx of the $200,000, which is.
I'm not necessarily voting on the $200,000, and it's certainly part of the consideration tonight, but
And then
that's not in your
question,
agenda.
that's our jurisdiction, consider that part of it, just like.
Sure, the Committee of Finance, Jamie has an opinion or anything on that, but I do think, like, what's right in front of us right now doesn't include the money necessarily. Is it in the best interest of the town? Do we want to, as this committee, actually approve the easement?
But I think if we're approving, we need to approve the $200,000, I'll leave it at that. One goes with the other, I guess, because it's if you continue that.
That's fair enough. Mr. Chairman, just a point of information. The R.T.M refers items to different committees. And we do have items that go, the Finance Committee, Ways and Means, and committees, but there are times that an item might come that you'll accept that might have dollars to do with it. We have capital projects that might get heard because they need to be heard by another committee. Now, on this item, all we have before you is the easement. Adding anything else, whether it was missed or, missed by what was given to us and interpreted, can't be added in this meeting anyway. The only thing you have before you is the easement. On the item of who brought this easement, or who asked to have this condition done, it most certainly was Beacon in the Housing Authority. Then you misspoke. You said they did just a second ago, that's why.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, it was in our letter, which we asked for easement.
You asked for an easement and you asked for it to be a condition of
Of the park site.
Beacon.
Exactly.
Okay, you misspoke.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you for
Yeah,
that.
no, it was part of our proposal.
That's
What I tried to say was, the project may be able to go forward without it.
Oh, yeah.
But it was definitely, you're absolutely right, sir, that the Housing Authority even proposed that as part of what they were asking of the planning and zoning to approve.
Sorry, I want to make sure we got that.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure, I don't know as to what easement you want. I mean, I'm looking at the map, is it the entire road that's being proposed? You want an easement over that entire stretch, all the way from, from the parking around the loop and then out to the street, that whole thing?
The second part of the loop that goes back into Foot Park.
Could you show me on the map?
Yeah, sure. That has absolutely no consequence to Branford Housing. So on this map, this is the access from Melrose down to the back of Parkside Village. And this is the loop back to Foot Park from the proposed parking area. And this has nothing, no sailings to us whatsoever. Okay? This part of the town's suggestion. This part is where, and in the parking area in here during construction is where we would need these. And it would be mostly for during the construction period, because after this is built, we're not gonna be parking back here, and we're not gonna be traversing this area at all. It'll be people who are using Slide Field that are doing that. The parking and the access to Parkside Village will be this way off of South Monmouth. Okay, thank you. Yep, thanks, Frank.
Committee, further questions? I don't see anything other than, sorry, just to bring something to the floor, yeah, it's sent to the committee from there. I think we're hearing the agenda item that was given to us from the moderator. There's a reason why we can't hear it tonight. actually voting on, taking any money in, for the full resolution, as I see it.
I mean, first of all, to follow up on Frank's, I'm looking through this agreement. I'm not seeing a legal description of the actual easement area. I see the agreement part, who's going to maintain it, and all of that. I mean, that says, because you want to know it's going to be, so many feet from the road, it's going to be X number of feet wide. As Frank is saying, on the map, it's hard to tell, but, so if we were to grant an easement, we want to know exactly where it was going. But, more broadly on this, this is a second land transaction, and I haven't followed the park side in and out. We did a land swap. I gather that hasn't been consummated, but it was definitely, I thought it was favorable to the town. There were a lot of people in the audience at the time when I voted for it that were obviously thought that it would stall or delay or stop Parkside if we didn't do it, but, it was in the interest of the town to go forward. For the same reason that earlier I put forward, I've spoken in favor of us accepting the Foot Park because we're building a contiguous piece of land there. But for that same reason, I oppose granting an easement in perpetuity here, because once we grant that easement, if we decide 20 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, we want to reconfigure our fields, we've got the easement that may conflict with our plans. If it's just our parking lot, we can turn a parking lot into, my favorite thing that I was talking about with Foot Park was turn a softball field into a lacrosse field, which was a sensitive topic with a few softball.
The girls were state
aficionados.
champs.
I didn't realize I touched a nerve when I said that, but Alex tells me pickleball is the thing now, but who knows, what's going to be on the agenda. So for that reason, I oppose granting an easement through our property, regardless of where it is. Some of this information, Attorney Pottinger is telling us it's not necessary for the project to go forward. He's got a letter here from, obviously they're going to contest the fire marshal's finding that it may be necessary. But, just based on our whole plan for that area, which was trying to build a contiguous area where going forward, maybe beyond my lifetime, the town has control of it as one contiguous group of properties from Indian Neck School, Slimy Field, and Foot Park that we were going to be able to do, and onto the sewer plant. I talked about what if we need to build something from the sewer plant. I mean, that's more likely to go on Slimy Field, but we don't know what the future is, so I don't want to alienate in any way any of that property that we tried to assemble over the last 5 years. That's my position.
So I'm Nicole Lamar, I'm going to sign this proposal is before you. The last exhibit to that proposal is the proposed maintenance agreement. So the way the easement is structured is that there is a period, which is the construction period for Parkside, where we really need it, right? We need to be able to use that area to access the site and for parking, right? Once the thing is built, the only reason that road is there, as far as we are concerned, is for emergency access. And we could easily draft something in here that says that to the extent that it's not required for emergency access, we would happily release it. The building is sprinklered, there are other ways for a fire truck to get in there. We're not going to tie up future development possibilities from the town. The second thing I'd just say to your first point about the legal description, there is no legal description of the access way yet because we don't have construction drawings for it. It's quite typical for an easement like this to, in lieu of a legal description, to attach a drawing, which is what we've done. But we would obviously happily swap out the drawing for a legal description once the easement was planned to the point where you could draft the legal description. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it just, if it was a drawing that was clear as to where it was, obviously.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
yeah.
And I think I know where it was, but
Yeah.
none of that, again, going forward,
Yeah.
would be opposed to granting an easement for the reason that I want to maintain town control, and if it's only
And
for
again, we would
emergency.
happily release the easement if you needed to redevelop that site for field. So we could put in the easement language that says that it can be.
That's not what in perpetuity means. I mean, that's your proposal here is in perpetuity, and if it's
I don't
required
think we.
for the safety of the
But we
project.
can release it, and it's like, it's not, there are other ways to get a fire truck there. So that's just to say that the housing authority has no interest in tying the town's hands in the future park
Well,
development.
I mean, I just disagree, the language, the proposal is that it be in perpetuity, which, if they want it for safety access, it needs to be. That it also says that we're required to maintain it according to the agreement, which would mean that we have to plow it or allow emergency vehicles to get through perhaps. But, most of all, it's, we're alienating a piece of town property.
Is that a different issue? Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, is that a different issue than referring it, that's not more of the article discussion?
Well, I mean, usually you guys make a recommendation. I mean, we try to discuss the minor details. I mean, we can rehash it at the full R.T.M. too. But generally, the committees make a recommendation and we try to get into the weeds at the committee level. We don't have a whole lot on our full R.T.M. agenda, so we can afford to, at the special meeting, so we can afford to get into the weeds a little more.
Mr. Chairman, I request at this time we start hearing from members of the public who want to speak.
May I try and respond briefly to Peter's question? In clause 2 of the proposed agreement says that this page 1 of the proposed Melrose Accessway Road Maintenance Agreement says that BHA, Beacon, and the people who are managing Parkside Village would have the right to maintain the access way, just the access way, for 1 year during construction and for 1 year thereafter, and to use it for emergency vehicle access in perpetuity. So it's a very narrow, very narrow use that would be defined in the easement, namely emergency vehicle access. That's the only in perpetuity aspect of the proposal.
Right.
So that it would be in effect for the safety and protection of people in Parkside and on the fields to be able to get emergency access up and down. But as Attorney Lamar said, this is a proposal, and if the town decides it wants to go forward, drafting in such a way that it's not in perpetuity is perfectly fine from the purposes of Beacon and the Housing Authority, because they don't need it in perpetuity. Okay, sorry.
Can I just address there's a few statements that mischaracterization. I just think it was a little bit mischaracterized strongly that this was a town project that was priority. To be clear, you stated the planning and zoning, the 824 referral of September 7th. There was a prior 824 referral, July 27th, where Beacon, the Housing Authority, requested had an 824 referral. Now, an 824 referral is state statute. Anytime there's going to be anything on any town property, before the legislative body can consider that project or encumbrance on town land, it requires a review by the Planning and Zoning Commission. That's state statute. That's part of the process. Beacon, the Housing Authority, requested an easement directly from Melrose to meet the back rear of the Parkside property, which they were getting ready to submit an application to develop. At that July 27th, it did not receive a favorable review from the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I'll just say, for the reasons stated in that meeting, the concerns of the proposal specific project, the commission had not heard yet. The fire marshal has indicated that this is a less preferable emergency access to the rear of the site than the existing sliding field access road. And item 3, the fire marshal gave reasons why this is less desirable access because of possible parking, maintenance, and other issues with the site. Beacon and the Housing Authority then approached staff to work with staff in developing and addressing what they heard and why they had not received a favorable review from planning and zoning. So to indicate that this was a town project or led by the town is a mischaracterization of the facts. The Housing Authority, and furthermore, it was stated that, yes, the town has worked with TPA in the past. However, the town has never engaged TPA with regards to this project. TPA was working for Beacon / the Housing Authority when they met with staff to discuss what are some of the other concerns. Then they came forward. So this whole request or saying that it was led by the town, it was a priority. As Representative Dunbar stated, this was not in our capital plan. We've done a lot of discussion regarding the capital projects that we've had in town. We put a 5-year capital plan that's in our budget. You would not see it within that capital plan, nor any money or for planning in any other part of the budget. We've done debt modeling where we discuss other projects that may be in the horizon. This project was never part of that debt modeling. That's going back to 2013. So I just think that's important to be addressed. I heard Representative Black's concerns about the encumbrance of the property. I think it's a mischaracterization to say that it's not required to have emergency access there in perpetuity, because it is. Planning and zoning requires you. How can you say in year 2, 3, 4, 5 that emergency access is no longer needed? And I think Mr. Black made a good point, and it's beyond just fields. We also do have a school that abuts that property, and who knows what the future may hold for that property. So I think that was a good point that I wanted to highlight.
We can probably go back and forth on what exactly happened last summer. My understanding is that the following happened. Negative referral came back from PCC on the first E-24 referral. We were prepared to plot out a plan for rear access that did not involve Melrose. My understanding is that when we did that, we then received a call from the town that said, don't do that. There are people who would like the Melrose access, so stick with that. TPA then sat down with the town of Branford without Beacon or the Housing Authority present. That is why you have a drawing in your packet that says prepared by TPA for the town of Branford, and plotted out a different plan. The difference between our initial plan that got a negative referral and the following plan that got a positive referral was that the parking spaces were added. The parking spaces were added to address Fire Marshal Heckern's concern that people might park and it wouldn't be wide enough and the fire truck couldn't get through because there would be parking. This way the parking is there and it's still wide enough to accommodate. That's my understanding. I don't think it matters whose proposal it is. It's either a good proposal or a bad proposal, right? So I don't want to get into a fight about that. I just don't want people to think that we're coming here in bad faith. We're not coming here in bad faith. I sent you a letter on June 11th. I signed it on behalf of my client. We're happy to own the proposal. We think it's a good one for the town of Branford. We don't have pride of authorship. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea, whoever's idea it was. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, Mark.
Through you, Mark Riccio, I'm on the R.T.M, I represent the 6th District. Through you, you asked this individual.
I don't want to get into a back and forth over talking points, we just kind of keep it towards.
Sure. You just said, I'd like to know what the benefits are to the town. You said something about in the last statement. Can you explain that to us, please?
So my colleague, and I think Attorney Pottinger addressed this pretty well in his initial remarks, but, okay, so I don't live in Branford, but my kid plays baseball, okay? And for some reason that really is way above my pay grade, his home field last year was lighting. I don't know, so it's here all the same time. The parking situation there is a disaster. It's pretty much a disaster, right? You drive in through Swanee Road, I mean, you don't feel like you're in the town of Branford anymore. It does not feel like a well-off suburb when you park at Swanee Road. It's not a great situation. It's unsafe. There's no delineation for the cars. I'm shocked that my car didn't hit the wall of the 20 times I was there. It's not a particularly good setup. People park on the grass. It's not particularly safe. There is no emergency access so somebody can turn on fields. If you park at the parking lot for Foot Drive and you have, like I do, 3 children and a bag of baseballs, there's no way you can get to the farthest field that's on the other side of the concession stand. It's not a great setup. So I do think at some point it's likely inevitable, as Attorney Pottinger said, that the town will do something to improve the situation over there, to make the access better, to make the parking better. That's why we think it's a benefit to the town.
If I could just respond. So I want to make sure I understand this. So the benefit to the town is to fix a parking problem.
And an access problem, and a traffic problem. I mean, pulling out of Sliney Road is not a real road. It is not a town-accepted road. It's on a private property, the Housing Authority of Branford. I seriously doubt that it meets any code requirements in terms of streets, because it is not a street.
So it's a traffic problem also. So how long does it take to get out of the traffic problem when there's an event?
I don't think it's just a question of traffic in terms of how long it takes. I think it's also a concern of safety.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the committee have questions? We'll take some public comment, kind of move along, and come back to R.T.M. members, and any members want a chance to ask questions.
Point one, pick up the C sign up sheet, followed by names.
Yes, I'm just, don't mind, that'd be great. And when making comments, can we just keep it to the agenda item as well? We don't want to turn this into a referendum on Parkside or anything else. We're here to vote on the Belrose Avenue access road. So try to limit conversation back and forth.
Hello, my name is Todd Petrowski, 67 South Monway Street. The only people that are benefiting from this is Beacon. The town absolutely zero benefits at all. Talking about parking, where Sean Heffernan had stated the only reason they can't get emergency equipment through there is because people park in the fire lane. Why isn't that being enforced by the police? $150 fine. I stopped by the police station today on the way, that's what it is. Couple tickets go on the cars, they're eliminating that problem. Your emergency access could come in, ambulance, fire trucks to the field. So that's a not true statement. Number two, the problems that Alex was addressing with parking. Foot Park has 146 parking spots. I know that because I went there yesterday to comment. There's access through Foot Park to Sliney Field. There's a picture of it right here, which I'm sure you know because you're in the district. I want to pass that around. So there's access to Sliney Field from Foot Park, which happens to be Number two, if there was, now the next question is going to be, well, what if Foot Park has events, softball, basketball, kids, and then there's also Little League? Well, the night of the Branford fireworks, which were tremendous, by the way, we made a makeshift parking lot in that area of grass of 160 cars. Alex Paluzzi is proposing and wants the town to build a parking lot for 50. It's 110 spots less that the town has to pay for and maintain. The Little League season runs approximately April to August, so that could be a temporary use as parking through an apron maybe put on Melrose down there without having to go through there. And so that would give you another 160 plus 146. talking 306 parking places. So it seems odd to me that we're fighting where they want 50 parking spaces for a field when we could have 160 of them for free. And in the wintertime, there is no maintenance. The grass doesn't have to get plowed, it doesn't have to get salted, sanded, fix potholes, and Branford Point's parking lot is grass, so there's no problem with driving on there. The Old Eagles parking lot is grass, Lighthouse Point Park in New Haven is grass. There's no problem there. Now, the next thing was, it says for the town. Now, I don't know if there's an email here that I don't know if you guys have read, but I will pass it on to you. And I'll read a quick excerpt of it. This is from Newman Architects, which is their architect, which it states on the Parkside website. To all, please find an attached study based on our last discussion regarding adding 30 townhouses at the existing ball field site, which in part is on Parkside 1 property. It assumes this field will be relocated by the town. Thank you. There's some more there that discusses that. So I want to know who's going to pay for relocation of the field that they want to put a parking lot in to help support the park. Also, that access road that they want has a flooding problem. There's a picture of a lake that's on the proposed road. Now, does the town have to put proper sewage in there? I mean, drainage to accommodate this access road that apparently they don't need because the woman said we could get a truck in there somewhere else, which I find hard to believe because it's a dead end one way, or a dead end street, not a one way, excuse me. And also, confused here. Yeah, like I said, why are we going to pay for a road that we're not going to use, that we could already have for free for parking, short term? And also, with the road being said, the people of the neighborhood, townspeople, we have hit the petition 3 times against this project, which is, I would assume, the majority of the people, as opposed to the people that are for this project. And you as the R.T.M. members were elected to go by the people, what the people want, they're our constituents, we talk to our district members. So I don't even know how a yes vote could even be entertained when there's so many people against it. I mean, why would you guys go against the people that elected you in? Doesn't make any sense how this is even tabled and how it even got this far. And you guys made a good point. If this thing is going backwards, not forwards, with what's going on here. And that's pretty much all I got to say. I want to keep it short and sweet, and thank you for your time, and I believe you guys will do the right thing by the people of the town. Thank you very much.
Next up, I've got
So, I want to make this clear, this isn't about the affordable housing project itself, but from the beginning, I've spoken at these meetings many times, and I have seen nothing wrong with the access, what the housing authority has tried to do to make life better for their residents. I think that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Hiring people to do it made sense. The tax credits issue and the way the construction is here, a lot of things there made sense. Where this went off the rails is when we did the second application, and it was affordable housing, and it became racism, and all this kind of stuff. So we're left today with a couple statements that were made, and were addressed a little bit by the first selectman, but were clearly not true. But I would like to say this. How in the world can you have a stipulation that you have this road as part of the planning and zoning approval? In a couple of years, there won't be a stipulation. So before you hear anything, unless you're just going to table this, I suggest you have Sean Heffernan come here and explain to us the magical process that happens, where you have a stipulation that this road exists for emergency access, and that it's no longer needed. And I have no idea how that happens. I've never heard of that. So Sean should at least answer that question. He's not here tonight. You should at least get a question to answer that before you can get rid of this. Now, they're trying to challenge that in court. They're in a very interesting situation where they're challenging their own suggested stipulation to approve it. So this was not negotiated. The planning and zoning did not come up with this. In their document, they said, we're okay approving this, considering only that this access road exists. So I don't know where they're going from that stipulation. But Sean Heffernan should be consulted, and we should get somebody in here that can explain how emergency access is good for the next couple of years, and after that, it's not. Besides that, the other question is, and the young attorney said it doesn't matter who proposed this. I suggest it does matter who proposed this. We elect our officials, and we have seen a process followed, whether it's the school or the senior center or any other spending that goes through countless public hearings. The public is heard before these things go forward. I'll give you an example of a project that came up last year, of a roundabout in town center. And it wasn't hugely, about 40, 50 people attended that roundabout meeting. And the overall census was kind of mixed. And since then, the town realized, well, maybe it's not worth going forward. Because the people had a say first, not last. We don't move private entities don't come forward to move town projects forward. We didn't have the architect come forward to push the school. We had our elected officials do that. We didn't have the engineer come forward to put the senior center. Our elected officials did that. So this is town property. And we've been here before. Not long ago, somebody requested to use town property for affordable housing. You went and listened to the people, they showed up, they were clear, both sides knew it, and they said no. The same thing applies here. You have somebody wanting to put affordable housing using town property. You heard from the people. I suggest you hear from the people first before hearing proposals from an outside company, an outside entity wanting to use town property. It does matter who brings this forward. We hold our elected officials accountable, and they're the ones who should be leading this, not some private entity. I strongly encourage you to vote.
Next up, I've got Todd.
I already went. Unless there's somebody else
Go
who wants to
again.
say anything. Want to go again?
Go ahead.
Nancy Kendrick.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for hearing us. My name's Nancy Kendrick. I'm a neighbor. I live on Indian Neck Avenue. We've been going to all these meetings. I'm not going to talk about Parkside and all of that, but that's exactly why we're here tonight. There was a few things I was going to talk about, but I was glad that you allowed our first selectman to get up and clarify some of those statements that were made before. There is no project right now that's on the table for the town of Branford for any road to the ball fields or any of that. This is for Beacon to get their emergency access that was put in the proposal by them to get it approved. However, Branford has to pay for this. This town has to pay for this. They're offering a nice gift or donation, or I don't know what you call it when you actually give them the town money to get what you want. But they're gonna give you $200,000, we're gonna build it, we'll maintain it, we'll do all of that. Be clear, this is for their benefit. They need that emergency access. They said that they'll go forward and that they don't need it, but why are we here if they don't need it? They would have done that before. They pulled their proposal the first time when they knew that we're gonna get a no vote. They pulled it, they came back to planning and zoning, put this in as a stipulation. If they had other means, why come to us? They could have done it before. With that, Todd talked about before, there was over 300 cars parked for the fireworks the other day. So 50 parking spots for this access road versus the 150, whatever he had said, that's a big difference. I have been a part of Branford Little League for years. I was on the board for over 5 years. The problem with the parking down there is where people think they're gonna park. They don't wanna walk the extra bit to park in the parking spaces. They wanna pull right up, they wanna park in the fire lane. We've called cops when I was the president down there. They come, they ticket them. It's correct, it's $150. And let me tell you, as soon as they see a cop coming, they move like crazy to move those. In those years, I have never had a problem. We had many incidents with ambulances getting down there to be able to help the kids. On top of that, we have Foot Park now too. That's it, right? It's run by the town. We have different access ways. You're gonna take what they're proposing is put a road through there. What do you think's gonna happen there? Well, they made it a little bit wider. You don't think people are gonna park on the side of that? They're gonna do it because they wanna park close enough. If we enforce what we have, we don't have a problem. That's what we need to do. As my representatives, I've spoken to many of you. I hope that you do what's best for Branford. You have a school there, you have the Sampson Field. All of our town sports have used that open space when it's not used for flag football, for all different kinds of things. Let's please not put a road there to let an out-of-state developer make millions of dollars there. Thank you.
Next up, we have Ted.
Hi, my name is Ted Zeus. I have a piece of property across the street at 117 South Monteese. I'm here to speak against voting on the new road proposal for the sliding field Melrose Drive project that relates to the Parkside 1 project. You may or may not be aware that earlier this year there was a petition filed by citizens in the town of Branford to the Board of Selectmen requesting that all the members of the Branford Housing Authority be removed from office for cause. Copy of that petition looks like this. It's one of the people who helped prepare the information and put it together and submit it to the town. And that's currently in the hands of the town. There is a legal finding by the State of Connecticut Freedom of Information Commission that the PHA has not kept financial records for the last 10 years.
Sorry to interrupt, but you just kind of keep it towards the Melrose Avenue item.
That's simply false, and we shouldn't be going there.
Back and forth, though. Housing authority does so much for
So,
Parkside as a project.
right, so the point of the issue is that prior to this board or the R.T.M. weighing in on further decisions related to this project, since there is a petition and investigation process by the First Selectman's office, it's our recommendation that you wait for whatever finding and whatever decision the first Board of Selectmen make and present forward prior to your acting on this, so that whatever difficulties there are at this time, we don't compound it and make it worse, but give a chance to resolve those issues and then have all the information available to you before you go forward. Great, thank you.
Next up, we have Damien.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Damien Clark, I'm a neighbor South Monteese. I'll keep it short. I just want to make sure the committee was, again, I attended, I'm not an attorney on Silver Tongue, so I apologize.
What is that, sir?
Yes, I'm not an attorney on Silver Tongue, so I apologize if I stumble on my words here and there. But I've attended each one of these meetings for the last 3 years, whatever it's been. And I want the committee just to be aware, as it relates to planning and zoning, and the words that you can see from Chairman Chuck Andrews, is that in his own words, public record, they were against this project, but for the fact that the out-of-town developer used this law unique to the state of Connecticut, section 8-30G, which put the emphasis upon the town to find two things that would stop the project, that is either public health and safety. And this road from the back of Melrose was that concession. Planning and zoning had discussions about, well, geez, we don't want to tell R.T.M. that we approve this project because that sends them sort of a false message. But if we say no, then they're going to sue us in court because of Rule 830G. So why don't we approve it with this concession? And that concession is this extension of Melrose Road as an access point. And we thought, no, R.T.M. the world would possibly approve a road. We have to take this piece of property. Why should we build a road for an out-of-town developer? Doesn't make any sense. For 50 parking spaces? Crazy. We want to be able to use that, as the gentleman put it, or with the Branford football field there, for God knows what in the future. but certainly not for an ill-conceived road just for the benefit of this out-of-town developer. So I will leave it at that, thank you.
Next, Doug?
Hello. I'm Doug Dennis, Chair of the Branford Housing Authority, excuse me, the much maligned Chair of it's really fairly simple. I think we need to clarify this. We do, in fact, know that there are alternative solutions to our problem, providing safe access for fire safety, ambulances, etc., to our project. Okay, excuse me. We do know that we have alternative solutions to this access way to solve our problems for safety access to our project. Among other things, we own Slimy Road. One of the proposals that we discussed with the fire marshal, and he agreed at the time that it was a viable solution, is to widen Slimy Road. It doesn't solve a lot of the town's problems, however. For one thing, during construction, we will have to shut down Slimy Road. If we widen it, we will have to shut it down during that process. There has to be another way to access those road fields. So, now, given that we have other solutions, we don't think they are as good as this one for a variety of reasons, and particularly for the town. So, this is not really about whether or not you are in favor of Parkside redevelopment. I mean, that was hashed out over hours and hours and hours of discussions in front of planning and zoning. This is really simple. It's whether or not you want to solve the access and parking issues at Slimy Field, and if you want our substantial assistance in doing that. It's not more complicated than that. Thank you very much.
Is there any further comments from the public or R.T.M?
Just one clarification, the town planner has made it clear that in order for signage to be extended, they need town property as well. That came up in the planning zone hearing, so they may actually have to come back with some property there as well. Just to make it on the record.
I'm sorry, for Slimy.
For signage to be expanded, it does, according to the town planner, go into town property. So that may also need a hearing here as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to decline the request for the easement and the offer. Move it, Mr. Chairman.
So the motion would be to find the request the referral report, which is not accepted.
Recommendation.
So we have, I don't know procedurally how to do that.
I'm sorry.
Oh, do we have
Is that a motion?
a motion before us?
Can you say that motion again? I didn't quite hear it.
I would move to deny the request for the easement and the offer.
Procedurally, we vote on denying the offer, or is this more to consider it if appropriate, approve a request from DHA and Beacon Communities to the town of Branford to grant access to build a road, an access road off of Melrose Avenue?
You want to take the couple of sentences? You want to separate the motions?
You don't have to separate.
Yeah, we just keep it the
You
same.
just decline what was on the.
Yeah, making a motion to not approve.
Not approved.
Okay. Just want to clarify. Thank you. Is there a second? I'll second it. Any thought? Any discussion as far as voting, not voting to approve?
Well, I mean, I'll say something.
And just vote on the same restriction.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am, please.
Well, I mean, it was said earlier tonight that this is an unusual procedure. Usually it comes to us at the end of the process. Usually we hear first from the town engineer, how much is it gonna cost? They show us an exact drawing of the access to be granted. They, it's part of the long-range plan. It's in the capital plan for the last 5 years. I mean, after all the approvals are given, then it comes first to us and then to the full R.T.M. I mean, the professor is asking us to, start it off. And yeah, so it's very unusual. So for those reasons, I also can't vote for it. I don't know all this other information, which I would have if it came to us at the end of the process. This is the beginning, of the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comment, committee, questions?
Well, I'm gonna vote not to approve. My concern tonight is the process, the way it came to us, that's one. The second part is the residents spoke. And I may not live there, but I'm smart enough to know that if that many people are against something, it might not be good at this time. So I'm gonna vote against it.
Anybody else, any members, thoughts, before I take any comment from public discussion?
Just for clarification, again, Representative Terrell, I mean, any misconstrued this, the proposal that's before you tonight.
Can you speak up?
Is the right proposal.
I can't hear you.
The proposal that came to you tonight is the right way. It goes to the Administrative Services Committee first. This is a land issue with an easement, and that's all you're voting on tonight. So, as Representative Ingerham and myself, representing the 5th District, we've been called numerous times from our constituents in the 5th District opposing this item. We are, as a committee, to vote no.
Is there any comment from the public? Yes.
I just want to say
Just
that.
go to the podium for us and state your name.
My name is Shirley McCarthy. I represent the Forest Commission. I'm not interested in getting into all their infighting, but the Community Forest Commission does support the Melrose extension because if we use the alternative road, which is lining, that whole outcropping, stone outcropping, mostly glass, there's 100 trees along with that. And that is a scenic road, and the tree outcropping, all those trees, about 100, contribute to that scenery, as well as human well-being. When you look at trees, you get this stress reduction response, and there's a lot of wildlife in there. So I think this is a much better way to come in. So that does benefit the town, maintains the beauty of that road. And number two, Alex Paluzzi, who's a town employee and knows a lot about Parks and Recs, really wants this. He thinks it will help that area. So for that reason, I think the easement is a good idea.
Thank you. Sure.
Hi, I've missed, my name is Julie Lacey, by the way, lifelong Branford resident. I've missed a lot of the meetings, unfortunately, but I've been keeping up with what's going on. I have to agree that if they're saying that they have another way to make an access road that is not going to cost Branford anything and not take any of our land, and then do it. Why are we here? I don't think we should be giving away valuable property for a $200,000 stipend dollars, because that's what it would amount to do that project. It's going to take way more than that to do that project and cost the town, and it's not in the budget for the next 5 years. So how are you even voting on it? It's not in the budget, it has to be approved by the town.
We're not voting to actually build the road
Right.
necessarily.
You're voting on the
Part of us
easement.
tonight is, would we, as a body, recommend to R.T.M. to actually go ahead, start the wheels in motion to start the process of building the
Right.
road? Would we?
But as our
if we
first
want to?
selectman said, nothing would happen for 5 years from now anyway. So if they have another option, they need to do that.
There are a lot of details that have not been disclosed that we don't know. don't think we're necessarily
Well, the public
voting
should
yes
know.
or no, should we do this? It's with the town of Branford, do the residents want it, is how I'm reading the agenda item.
So then I would be a resident that does not want it.
I think we can be clear that we're voting as to whether or not to further this along to the RTM, as opposed to yes or no up and down vote.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I mean, you guys make a recommendation
Yes.
to the full RTM. This body is done some where things get quote unquote killed in committee. We've also seen things come out of committee with the recommendation one way, only to go the other way on the floor. This is, there's 6 people out of 30, so even if they voted unanimously one way or another, it doesn't mean that that's the way the 30 are gonna vote. But, you know, this, what's before you tonight is just an easement that's somewhat unspecified, but, you know, it's a recommendation. The motion on the floor is a recommendation not to grant the easement. That's what's before you.
Right, so if they vote no on that, are you saying that the full RTM could still vote?
We'll vote for it. We have a special meeting in a week. So, you know, again, this is a recommendation to the full RTM. It's the way our process operates. So, you know, up to 30 people will be voting for it. It's next Wednesday, Dennis?
Full
25th.
RTM will be voting on this on July 25th. And what it is here tonight is the committee process. It goes to the committee first based on their recommendation. And then it's forwarded to the RTM next week. And then the full RTM body will make its, will vote on it to approve or disagree.
Okay, so I'll just say one more thing, and that I think a no vote would be a good example of how full RTM.
Hi, my name is Clarice Bagley. I just have a question about process. I don't go to a lot of these meetings, but I'm struck that there's a committee, and maybe the moderator, the rules be clear, but there's a committee. But then there are other people speaking, and they're not speaking just to clarify procedure or to give help on how a process goes through, you know, like Peter Black just said. They're giving very strong opinions, and I find that very troubling. I feel like a committee should be able to do its work with public input, but without, I mean, I don't know if the first selectman is often at meetings, you know, trying to clarify things or to rebut something that Housing Authority has said. I find that really troubling. I think it influences the process. And it makes, I mean, it's very clear to you that the first to everyone in the room, the first selectman is against it. I don't know how easy then it is for you to do your job because you're being influenced. So that's my question. I'm actually in favor of housing for people who have special needs. We're not talking about
road access.
But I'm just saying that there's been a lot of talk about how there is support. So my first, okay?
And we'll just comment that.
So Chairman, just to let people know, the people, except for Steve, sitting here are ex officios of the RTM, of this committee. So we all have standing and being able to speak. We don't have a vote, so it goes to the full RTM. So us going back and forth is normal for RTM subcommittee meetings. I go to almost all of them.
Often the first selectman is there to present items or kind of clarify information we don't have, so it's not up to people who come to meetings as well. Yes.
I wasn't going to address anything this evening because everyone has stated it clearly, and I realize that many of you have not been through the 2.5 years that I have been through with planning and zoning with factual information. So I thought maybe I'll address strictly about this road issue. But I am going to say one thing. And he knows it's contentious because the first selectman and I have gone at it for 2.5 years. And he has been hands off from this project, not answering any questions, and very appropriately so, as I learned through the process, through my dealings with the state of Connecticut Chapman Department of Housing. So it is absolutely correct, he can't influence this road. Now, about this access road, there are a lot of emails coming down because I've been advised by many of the RTM members and officials just to get my point across, and maybe I'll get my point across clearly. I encourage you to all either contact me directly or look for these factual emails. In the emails, it is very clear from their own words that our guests from Boston, our own housing authority, its nonprofit that had formed, Branford Affordable Housing Inc., which we need to make sure is also on any of the documents, because that is the nonprofit that entered into the agreement with Beacon, not the housing authority. The Branford Affordable Housing Inc. entered the agreement. So unless their name isn't on the legal documents, I don't know how that goes. They proposed this. They have everything, the access road and the availability of how it's going to be drawn, the meeting with the town officials and the meeting with the fire marshals. It went from the chain of command backwards, forwards. It did not go forward, backward. Our town officials made no suggestions to the affirmative about how to make this project go in an affirmative. They made suggestions, they said perhaps, and I am only saying this from emails that I read. I encourage you, when anybody's voting, you must read this information. Because when I heard the attorney speaking about how the road can go just for a year, and then another year, and then they'll give it back, well, I would implore you to read the emails where they're just gonna have a wellness center and then they're not, and they're just gonna have the seniors and now they're not. So you have to look at the trend of the people who are asking you for requests. And I don't see where you're going to get me just for a year or not. So strictly speaking about an access road, the town of Branford, its neighbors and its constituents don't have a problem with the ball fields. They don't have a problem with the road. Our Boston neighbors have a problem with the town the way it is. They have a problem with our roads, and people who don't live in Branford seem to have the problem with how Branford does its business in our little town community. So listen to our town of Branford people, our guests who we welcome, having a house party, we open arms to them, but you should listen to the residents. I think you have, but I just had to say, you're absolutely right, the direction on how you're taking a procedural vote. Because one of the calls I said to the first selectman is, where's the project? I'm looking through the projects, I'm looking through the budget. Why are we voting on a road? There's nothing in the project, like the library meeting I attended and the firehouse. All those meetings I attended, and he just said, keep looking. He won't encourage or discourage. He lets you do it on your own. So I don't believe that smart people need influence from the first selectman to make your decisions on a vote. Whether you like something or not, I'm sure you guys have approved or disapproved projects based on other people's. From your own heart, from your town folks who say, we're okay with our road, we're okay with our ball fields. If our Boston or our Yale people have a problem with it, then maybe we'll help them with their town. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if you did it again. Can you just state
Oh,
the record? I'm sorry.
I apologize. Carolyn Sayers?
Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a sheet back here. Yes, whoever's still coming up to talk, you can just write your name down just so it's easier. I don't have to do that. Yes. No, I got it. Moving forward. Sorry, yes, Mr. Owens. Anybody else actually from the public that wants to speak?
Just signing.
In front of us now, we are voting on a motion not to approve the agenda item, which is to consider if appropriate approve a request from DHA and Equal Communities for the town of Branford to grant access to land to build the road.
Just one question, based on the way the call is, you have to say, no, not to grant. It's not for anything else, right? It's no, is the thing. Not yes to what you said, it's no to what's on the agenda. And no is against.
So your yes vote is no.
Yeah, we're going backwards here. So your motion not to approve. So yes vote. Yes.
There you go.
Two originals.
Yeah. Chris, any thoughts? I know kind of led up the procedures and stuff in the past as far as anything that you may be missing procedurally.
There's a motion on the floor, so the motion is not to accept. So a yes vote would be agreeing not to accept their proposal. And no vote would be to accept the proposal as it's I think there's been good conversations. I don't think that.
You said it backwards.
Did I? Who's right?
I don't say that often.
A no vote is a yes.
Yes, because the motion is not to.
A no vote accepts the referral.
Yes.
Yeah.
No means that you.
No means yes.
No means to accept the proposal as it's being called for. Because of the way that the motion that the committee made.
Right.
Alright,
just one other comment, I guess, we can vote on this. Comments, concerns, right?
No, I think, this was a good meeting, everybody had a chance to speak. As I said, there was a lot of topics that people spoke about. It was a good meeting.
All right, so all those in favor of not approving a request by BHA and Beacon Communities for the town of Branford to grant access to land to build an access road off of Melrose Avenue, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Four. Against? No. Abstentions? So the motion is even? No, the motion is approved, not to approve it. Yes, backwards, but yes. The motion is approved not to move forward.
Can you clarify who voted for? This was a vote to reject the proposal by the housing authority.
Correct, yes.
And so the vote was, the no votes were for the proposal for the housing.
Yeah, correct.
And how many no votes were there?
There's two no votes.
And who were the two votes?
Can you raise your hand, Gordon? Okay.
And the four were. Way to go, Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.